Welcome to the training. We're going to talk about minerals and hormones and how you can use minerals to simplify and streamline your healing journey. And if you're here, I'm guessing you're looking for some sort of support in your healing journey. Maybe you're really overwhelmed because the amount of information out there now is just crazy. It's great, but it all conflicts and it can be incredibly confusing and hard to navigate. I also get the other end of the spectrum from women where they're like, I just feel like I've already tried it all, which I totally understand. If you haven't addressed your minerals, though, I can promise you, you are missing a huge piece of the puzzle. Or if you're kind of like frozen and don't even know where to begin because you feel like there's so many different possible avenues, mineral testing is where I recommend starting. It helps you set an incredibly strong foundation so that anything else you do will only be more effective. So I believe that minerals just help you connect the dots and figure out what do you actually need to focus on to start seeing progress, and not just continue to spin your wheels. If you are new to me, if you've never listened to my podcast or followed me online, I am Amanda. I am a women's health dietitian professionally. Personally, I'm a mom of two beautiful little girls, Eliana and Amaya, and a military spouse, but not for much longer. It's been a decade, but we're getting out. So I won't be able to say that anymore. My journey really started when I got off hormonal birth control 15 years ago, which I'm like, ooh, that's a long time ago. And everything went wrong. I was a college athlete. I was making changes to my nutrition. Obviously, I was in school studying to be a dietitian. And so I'm like, I'm going to come off the pill. And my doctor's like, yep, no big deal. Once you finish this next packet, just don't take anymore. And I'm like, I thought nothing of it. I can't even tell you how naive I was going into this. And then I come off and I'm like, okay, weird. My period didn't come. I was like, oh my gosh, am I pregnant? Of course, immediate panic, and was not pregnant. And all of a sudden I started getting symptoms. I'm like exhausted, no matter how much I sleep. I'm cold all the time. My hair's falling out. I always had acne, but my acne got way worse. And it was like 3 months, no period. I'm like, what's going on? So I go to the doctor and, he tells me it's completely normal. This can happen. It can take a year to get your period back, which is how long it took me. And he did some tests. He's like, you have hypothyroidism and it looks like you have PCOS. And you probably didn't know you had PCOS because you were on the pill for so long. And I was like, cool. This is great news. And basically he gave me a prescription for thyroid medication and I got no other help. I was told it's completely normal. And so that really set me on my journey to learning as much as I could about women's health. And this is 15 years ago. So there was no one talking about this on Instagram. There really weren't like any books or anything out. I didn't have the post pill book from Dr. Jolene Brighton. That would have been a true gem if I did. There's so many amazing resources now. It's awesome. But I don't, it's okay because I love the work that I do. And it totally changed the trajectory of my career. I was originally going for sports nutrition. I thought that was because I was a college athlete. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And after being on the pill for 7 years, copper IUD for 7 years, having a ton of hormone imbalances that like, it just felt like nothing was working. That's when I was like, this is going to be my main focus right now. So, I got really into functional medicine because obviously conventional medicine didn't really help me. I was like, okay, well, my skin is still atrocious. I took antibiotics for like 4 years for my acne. Nothing helped. They told me I wasn't a good candidate for Accutane, which I have no idea why, but I'm so grateful I never did it. And just, vitamin A levels, liver, the whole thing. So I kind of went down the functional medicine route and I found myself doing lots of testing, lots of protocols, and I would feel a little bit better. And then as soon as I stopped my supplements, I started to feel bad again. And I'm like, what is going on? This is crazy. I even went and got certified in functional. I became a FDN, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, so I could do my own testing because I'm like, this is just not making sense. I don't know what I'm missing. And one of my mentors was like, you should really do hair testing. And I was like, that doesn't even sound legit. So honestly, I was like, this feels like it's not real. And he was like, I just think it'd help you because he was explaining to me how the pill and the copper IUD can cause a lot of copper imbalances. And he's like, it seems like all your symptoms line up with that. And I'm like, okay, fine. I was desperate. And so I did it. first I did research because I was like, I'm not going to invest in this if it's not real. And turns out it is. It's very real. It's a very great way to test trace minerals via the hair. And it completely changed my life. I saw my test results and it was like my symptoms to a T. I had major copper imbalances. I had certain minerals that were super low, really high calcium, and it just lined up with everything that I felt. And I was like, wow, this is exactly what I needed. And then from there, I was able to focus more on like nutrition and lifestyle. And I added in some supplements, but it wasn't overwhelming and it wasn't crazy. And it was so much more of like, let's look at your stress, which was hard for me at the time. And I've used hair testing ever since. I started using it in my clients because I got results so quickly. And I was like, wow, this is so much more effective than any other testing I use. And I was completely baffled. I shared it with all my practitioner friends. I made everyone I knew do a hair test. And it completely changed my life. I still use hair testing on myself, my family. I've been pregnant or breastfeeding for at least 3 years at the point that I'm recording this. Way more than 3 now, 3.5. And minerals have been crucial for me in this season of life too, and for my children as well. So whenever something pops up health-wise, I know that I have the support that I need and the tool in my toolkit that's going to help me, and that is hair testing. So here's what I'm going to get into today. I'm going to talk about what minerals are, why they matter for hormones, what hair mineral testing is and what it shows you. And then we'll talk about examples of common mineral imbalances I see often in my practice, and then how you can use hair testing strategically within those examples. Okay, so let's get into minerals, what they are, and how they impact our hormones. So minerals are like spark plugs. They act like little helpers and kick off reactions in the body. So examples of this, so basically every system in the body will be touched by minerals because we have different enzymes that fuel many different reactions and functions in the body. If we think of one like blood sugar I love that example because I think most people kind of understand that like, okay, when we eat food, especially if it has carbohydrates in it, it's going to break down to glucose and that's got to go inside our cells. Otherwise, we can have high blood sugar that can lead to a host of health issues. And one of the minerals that helps us use glucose properly is magnesium. And it's because it activates an enzyme that is part of that process. So they're not like the main event. They are the little helpers that make the main event happen properly. And when they start to get out of balance, our bodies will compensate, but eventually they can't compensate anymore. And then all these dysfunctions start to pop up in the body. So these are just some examples of what we use minerals for. Energy production uses magnesium, phosphorus, iron, copper, manganese, zinc, selenium, and calcium. Blood sugar uses calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, chromium, manganese, and phosphorus. Detoxification uses magnesium, zinc, selenium, sulfur, molybdenum, manganese, iron, copper, chromium, potassium, sodium. So I think you kind of get the gist here of like so many minerals are required in order for the different systems of the body to function properly. Thyroid hormone alone requires so many minerals to make it, to transport it, and to get it inside our cells. Same thing with digestion. We use minerals to make digestive juices and make sure we're breaking down our food properly in the first place, and to make digestive enzymes. And hormone production. We use a lot of minerals in that hormone production process. So when our minerals start to get out of balance, that's when we start to see symptoms. And out of balance could be that they get depleted. We're using them up. We don't have enough. Minerals can get out of balance if other minerals that are their cofactors are out of balance. So an example of this is like copper. If we have a lot of copper, but maybe we don't have enough molybdenum, then we can't use that copper properly. Or manganese is also important for copper. So you can have plenty of copper, but your body doesn't use it right. And so that imbalance can impact how you feel as well. So hormone imbalances are going to be impacted by thyroid function, detoxification, blood sugar balance, stress, digestion, gut health. And we need minerals in order for all of these to be functioning properly, as you saw on the previous slide. And I just want to make a note because I feel like for like now, I mean, this is kind of always how it's been. And when you go to the doctor, they ask you, what's wrong? What are you dealing with? And it's like a major focus is on our symptoms. And it's not that I don't think symptoms are important. I do, but I think that symptoms are viewed so negatively, right? They're not bad. They're actually what probably brought you here to watch this video. But we don't want them to just go away. We don't want to just figure out, okay, I have this symptom. Maybe it's like painful period cramps when you're menstruating, and you're like, I'm going to take this supplement to make my cramps go away. And it's like, okay, but why do you have the cramps in the first place? That means there is something brewing underneath that is causing that symptom. So we want to understand, what is our body trying to tell us? We want to get curious. And I talk about this a lot. I truly think that if we can have a curious mindset on our healing journey, that you will save yourself so much energy and stress and just a heartache basically while you're healing. Because instead of stressing constantly about your symptoms and being in fear, you will be coming at it from a curious angle where you're like, I'm not going to panic about this symptom right now. I can feel upset about it. I can feel annoyed, and I can let those feelings happen. It's not like we want to ignore that, but I can feel those things and then also realize, okay, I'm upset, and now I'm going to let those feelings go, and I'm going to try to figure out, what is my body trying to tell me? Because by the time we have symptoms appearing, it means that something has already been brewing for a long time. So we have to look under the hood and see what is causing those symptoms. And this is where minerals come in. So one example of this is irregular cycles. I see this a lot. Could be PCOS diagnosis, might not have PCOS diagnosis. Maybe they're just struggling with irregular cycles. But either way, the systems I'd be thinking about for, okay, someone has irregular periods, irregular ovulation. Do they have gut digestive issues going on? Probably. And then do they have blood sugar imbalance issues? Probably. And then what minerals impact like the gut issues? Low sodium, low potassium, low zinc, high cobalt, low phosphorus. And then blood sugar imbalances could be impacted by higher low calcium, higher low magnesium, low sodium, low potassium, low chromium, low manganese. And so we want to address these imbalances to improve these systems to get rid of this symptom. And so my major takeaway is that hormone imbalances, the symptoms that are popping up and leading you to think, I think there's something going on with my hormones, they don't come out of nowhere. Hormones are the last thing to change. So if you think about, I like this visual of like, okay, your thyroid gets a little sluggish, your adrenals are tired, you're not handling stress well, your body's now on a blood sugar roller coaster, energy's up and down. That leads to poor digestion and gut health. And then we have an increased load on the liver and poor detoxification capacity. And eventually this is going to show up as hormone imbalance type symptoms. So now you know the connection, what minerals are. They're little spark plugs. They affect our hormones because they affect all the different systems in the body, which impact how we make and use hormones. And when it comes to, okay, so that's cool, but how do I assess my minerals? How do I even understand what my own mineral status is? This is where hair tissue mineral analysis, or HTMA, comes in. And I thought I'd give you a little visual because it can be scary. I got a lot of, and I also did not want to cut my hair from my first hair sample. And I have a lot of women that tell me that's a lot of hair. When they see my video, like I have a few reels that show my husband cutting my hair. I'm like, he's cutting a little too much, but there's only so much you can do about that. But there's ways. I have a video of my course of like how to cut less and all that stuff, but it can be intimidating cutting a hair sample, but it's funny because a lot of our clients are like happy they don't have to get blood work done. So there's pros and cons, but basically a hair sample, cutting that and then sending that in to get tested, that's the process. And when it comes to where to cut the hair sample, because I do often get questions about that, it's the closest to your scalp that you can get. And you want it so it's no longer than 1.5 inches long. It doesn't have to be 1.5 inches long. But you see in this little picture here, I just cut my younger sister's hair sample. I cut it, and then the kit comes with a little scale. You just fold the sides in, and then I cut the sample from, she has very long hair. So I cut it off so it's no longer than 1.5 inches. I put it on the scale and that tipped. So it's about a heaping teaspoon of hair is how they describe it. It's not a lot. And so I think most people cut a little too much. And so you can cut small amounts and then just put it on the scale. If it doesn't tip, cut another teeny tiny sample, put the two samples together, put those on the scale. It usually tips. So it can be intimidating. I had really bad hair loss the first time I cut my hair sample. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm doing this. But I was also very desperate for healing. And so it's not a crazy amount of hair, but it can be hard if you are struggling with hair loss. And a lot of times I get the question of like, why do I do the hair? Why don't I just have blood levels measured? And blood testing has its place, specifically for iron. I do think we have to use blood to test our iron status. But when it comes to other trace minerals, I like to look at hair because it's looking at what's going on inside the cells, where blood work is looking at what's happening outside of the cell. And if we think about minerals, like certain minerals like potassium, magnesium, they're intracellular minerals, which means most of that mineral, and 98% of it, is inside the cell. So looking at a blood level for magnesium or potassium, like in the serum, is just not helpful. It's not going to change until your mineral levels are way, way out of balance. And the body does that because it will compensate. So blood levels are very tightly regulated. Our body tries to keep them within a certain range, and it'll pull those minerals from other tissues in the body in order to do that. And that's what we see on the hair test. We get to see what is going on with your mineral status. So not only do we get to see mineral levels, but we also get to see like, are they high? Are they low? It's not like your typical blood test. You get to see, is your body using a lot of this? Is it being pulled into the blood, or is it deficient? The other thing I really like about hair testing is that it looks at the last 3 months, where blood work looks at a moment in time. Again, they can both be beneficial in their own way, but I just don't think that hair testing can be replaced with the amount of data that you get from it. Okay, so is HTMA accurate? I had this question when I first did a hair test, so I'm sure other people do. And this is something that I dug into because I was like, I just want to make sure this is going to show me accurate levels of minerals in my hair and it's not just some randomly inaccurate test. And it is accurate. The Environmental Protection Agency has concluded that human hair testing may even be more appropriate than blood or urine samples for trace mineral levels. Heavy metals, I mean, we've used hair testing for a while. The issue is that, I mean, I think part of it is that it's not like a conventional test, it's like a functional lab test. And so there's less regulation. And so unfortunately, that means that different labs are all using different practices in order to perform the test. And so that's why I only use trace elements personally, and with my students and clients. Analytical Research Labs is another great lab, but those are really the only two labs that I trust, that I have like spoken to, and I know all of their hair testing process, where they don't wash the sample, because that's really where you can get the most inaccuracies. And I've seen there are studies that are like, they sent the same hair sample to 3 different labs and they all came back with different levels. That's because of those practices. And again, this is why you don't have to use those labs if you want to go get a hair test done, but you really want to make sure that you call the lab first, or at least chat with them and say, what are your processes for testing the hair? Do you wash the sample? You want to specifically ask for that, because if they do, that's going to change the accuracy and just what your results will be. The other piece of the puzzle is how you're completing the hair test. So have you colored your hair recently? That could affect your test results. You'd want to wait 6 to 8 weeks to cut your hair sample then. Do you have hard water? That can cause calcium to look really high, even though it's actually not. So you can use distilled water to wash your hair, or I think it's much easier to just get a shower filter and use that for a couple weeks before you take your hair sample. The other one is medicated shampoo. So zinc and selenium is very common in medicated shampoo. And so ideally you either avoid those, or you know that, hey, I'm using this zinc-based shampoo because if I don't, my scalp's going to be a wreck. So my zinc's going to be high in my test, but it's probably not really high. Same thing with selenium. And so you would just have to make a note of like, all right, or whoever, with your practitioner or whatever, that it's like, that's why those are high. This kind of ties into the last thing that I think is important, is the other part of the accuracy is the interpretation, understanding what does it mean if a mineral is high or low on a hair test. It's important how to read a hair mineral test properly, because it's not just as straightforward as blood work where it's either deficient or it's not. It's showing your unique response to stress. You get to see your digestive markers. You get to see your nervous system ratio, how your body's handling blood sugar and insulin, your thyroid ratio. You get to look at the vitality and the health of your cells, detoxification markers. I mean, you get so much information, but it does take a little bit of training to understand, like, how do I read this? It's not difficult. It's just kind of, I mean, I made a roadmap to make it easy, so that you can kind of go through your hair test and understand what does each value mean, and keep it in context to yourself. Because that's the other piece of the puzzle, is that, we're not just lab test results, we're people too. And so you want to take your results into consideration, and then also take your health history and your kind of main concerns into consideration too. So yes, HTMA is accurate. It does matter where you get the testing done and how you complete your sample for accuracy. And then also you just want to make sure that you have a roadmap or some sort of guidance in order to understand your test results. So some of the benefits of hair testing: number one, you can do it right at home. Doesn't cause any pain other than having to cut your hair, and that can be painful for some people, I guess. It was for me at first. And you sent it right to the lab. You don't have to wait for your appointment with your doctor or beg for a lab test from them. It's affordable, less than $100. Most places you can find it. That is definitely one of the cheapest functional lab tests out there, which makes retesting in the future much more realistic and allows you to kind of tweak things as needed and keep it, as a tool in your journey, in your toolkit for your healing journey. And then it also looks inside your cells, like I mentioned previously. So blood work is looking outside the cell. Hair testing is looking at what's happening inside your cells and how your body is responding to stress. And plus you get to look at all those different body systems. And you really can't find all of that in one test anywhere else. So let's get into some common mineral imbalances that I see in practice. Number one is a slow 1 metabolic type with copper imbalances. So slow versus fast metabolic types. I'll quickly go through this just because you might be wondering, like, what's a slow one? A metabolic type is looking at, you're either going to be fast or slow, and it's all going to depend on your calcium and your phosphorus levels. That's going to dictate whether you're fast or slow. So this person has high calcium, and phosphorus is actually good, but the calcium is higher than phosphorus. So that means they're more of in like a slow metabolic state. And a fast metabolic type is when calcium is lower than phosphorus. Calcium is a very sedative mineral. So when it's high, it'll slow you down. When it's low, speeds you up. So fast versus slow. And then the number 1, 2, and 3, 4, those are the different possible subtypes of a metabolic type. So this person is a slow 1 because everything is slow. If we were to look at their ratios, which are here, we can see nervous system ratio is low. We can see their thyroid, calcium, potassium, their thyroid ratio is really high, which means slow. And then their adrenal ratio is low, which means depleted and slow. So they are slow, slow, slow. So that's what a slow 1 is. And then once you get to 2, 3, and 4, it's just a little out of balance. A fast 1 is when everything's fast. And then again, once the further you get away from that, the further out of balance you get. So this particular client, she had endometriosis and was really struggling with bloating, severe period pain, anxiety, and acne. And some of the major highlights from her hair test, this is like what the main chart on the test looks like. Really high copper, really high uranium, this heavy metal here. She also had very low sodium and potassium. You can see over here, high calcium, low cobalt, these 2 little arrows. This means that the cobalt is so low it couldn't be measured. And then very low manganese right here and low chromium right here. So the biggest takeaway from all these is that she has poor estrogen clearance, which is important for endometriosis because typically they're estrogen dominant, and digestive dysfunction. And we can see this because low sodium and potassium and manganese can really impact bile and gut motility. Low boron, low cobalt, those can affect stomach acid and methylation. So if we don't have good digestive juices being made, good bile production, and good gut motility, then we are so much more likely to recirculate things like estrogen and copper and heavy metals and mold too, mycotoxins, and not break down our food well, lead to more inflammation in the gut. And if we're not detoxifying well and our gut motility is not good, that slows down, then you have more risk for like overgrowth in the gut and just more gut issues in general, which is really like the epitome of all her symptoms. The bloating, probably very slow gut motility, the severe period pain, likely related to heavy metals, liver burden, copper, estrogen, and inflammation, and then the acne, copper for sure. Anxiety, those are all her test results match up exactly with her symptoms. With her ratios, we learned that she is really kind of stuck in that parasympathetic state, not handling stress well. Her sodium potassium vitality ratio is low, which means she has been chronically stressed for a while. Her thyroid ratio is high. Now, this doesn't diagnose like hypothyroidism. This is the ratio is looking at, are you using thyroid hormone quickly? Can you get it into the cell quickly, or very slowly? And for her, because her potassium is so low and her calcium is high, that's really slowing down how well her body is using thyroid hormone, which can worsen a lot of her thyroid symptoms, like the bloating, like the anxiety, not making enough progesterone to balance out the estrogen. And then her zinc copper ratio is very low, which shows excess copper, because that will really antagonize zinc, and that can basically contribute to the high estrogen and then progesterone resistance, which is very common with endo. And then the adrenal ratio, sodium magnesium, just shows adrenals are very exhausted. And her blood sugar ratio is high, which means that she's much more likely to be on a blood sugar roller coaster. So she was able to utilize hair testing to streamline her healing because she identified the copper imbalance. Rebalancing that copper is going to bring down estrogen and inflammation, and that's going to help her period pain, anxiety, bloating, acne, everything. She identified that she wasn't using thyroid hormone well. So that sluggish thyroid, that can also contribute to poor digestion, blood sugar imbalances, and then poor estrogen progesterone balance. And she also was able to identify how she can fix her and support her digestion, which is really important for hormone health in general, but overall health too. And then she identified her heavy metal load. Seeing that really high uranium definitely freaked her out a little bit, but she knew what minerals to focus on and like what kind of binder to use to make sure that her body could get rid of it. So instead of following a cookie cutter protocol for endometriosis, she made one to fit her exact needs. And this is the most important takeaway. While there can be a lot of helpful general recommendations for women with certain health conditions out there, I see it all the time for like endometriosis, PCOS, each woman is still going to have her own unique needs. And mineral testing is what helps us figure out exactly what you need. Another common pattern I see is a fast 4 with depleted minerals. So fast metabolic type, remember that means calcium is lower than phosphorus. We could see that here. And then the 4 means that even though she's fast, so her calcium phosphorus ratio is fast, very low, you can see right here. Her thyroid ratio is high, so sluggish thyroid and sluggish adrenals. So fast 4 means even though her thyroid and adrenals are exhausted and she's definitely very depleted, her mineral levels are pretty low, her body is still in that fight or flight state, using up minerals. And I see this fast 4, I see a lot. This client has PCOS and was really struggling with irregular cycles, high cholesterol. That was like one of her top concerns when she came to see me. Eczema, asthma, allergies, anxiety, depression, low energy, low libido, trouble staying asleep at night, and digestive issues, lots of bloating and gas. And just like some major highlights we can see from her test, these first 4 minerals here, calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium, these are all pretty depleted. Sodium and potassium especially. I mean, potassium is so low, it can't even be read. This is a sign that she's been stressed for a very long time, very burnt out, right? Kind of lines up with all her symptoms. She likely has some hidden copper stuff going on because her manganese is very low. Her molybdenum is also low, and her sulfur is trending low. And boron is so low it can't be read. And all of these are important to keep copper into balance and use it properly. She's also still moving mercury, like a decent amount of that heavy metal, even though her minerals are low. So that's a lot of toxic load. That's a lot of work for her liver to do without having the resources to back it up. And then we know her minerals are likely contributing to the digestive issues, the low manganese, chromium, cobalt, molybdenum, sodium, potassium, just a hard time making enough digestive juices, which again can cause many issues downstream. From her significant ratios, we can see she's leaning more of that into that fight or flight state of stress. Her sodium potassium vitality ratio is very low, which shows like adrenals have been taxed for a long time, definitely a big contributor to things like fatigue and sleep. And then her thyroid ratio very high, so not using that thyroid hormone well. And then her zinc copper ratio is elevated, which typically means that there's a copper imbalance and their body can't use that copper properly. Her adrenals are exhausted. I mean, 0.31 is low. And her blood sugar ratio is a little out of balance. It's not that bad, but it's definitely a little high. And that can definitely be contributing to her anxiety, likely from stress, insulin signaling just being slower because her magnesium is very low, which means her cells aren't as sensitive to insulin. The other piece of the puzzle, fun little bonus for you guys, is iron. Iron is very important for PCOS. It's something that does not get enough attention, but I see iron overload in most of my PCOS clients and students, and it can happen for a few reasons. Number one is obviously a lot of women with PCOS don't have regular cycles, so they're losing less iron through their menstrual blood. And we women, we absorb a lot more iron than men because we typically lose it every month. So when we don't have that blood loss, you can actually get overloaded with iron. The other piece of the puzzle for women PCOS is that they tend to have lower levels of hepcidin. Now, stay with me here. It's a protein that regulates iron. So basically, lower hepcidin means more iron absorption and eventually can lead to high iron, especially if you're pairing that with less bleeding, less iron loss. So PCOS is really like a recipe for iron overload. And it's funny because the symptoms of iron overload are very similar to PCOS: insulin resistance, inflammation, infertility, gut issues, high cholesterol, eczema, allergies, asthma, acne. So her high iron is also a big contributor for her. Her total iron is 141, which is elevated. Iron saturation is 41%. Ideally, it's 25 to 35. Hemoglobin is high. Ideally, it's closer to 13.5. And then her copper is high. So remember I mentioned that I think she probably has copper imbalances based just on her hair test alone. I said she probably has some copper excess that her body can't use. So we can see that copper excess in the blood. It's 144. Ideally, it's closer to 100. So this high copper is likely from inflammation, and just her thyroid and adrenals not working well, because we need healthy thyroid, healthy adrenals to make copper useful in the body. But this can also be contributing to a lot of her symptoms as well. So using hair testing and technically blood work, it helped streamline her healing because she was able to identify mineral deficiencies and know, what do I actually need to supplement and what should I avoid? Like a lot of women with PCOS are recommended to take iron, and I'm like, drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. Or even just like a multivitamin with iron. I'm like, no, don't do it. Because unless you've tested and you know you need it. But she was able to identify her deficiencies and see what's actually going to help her move the needle. She was able to identify copper issues. So she had the high level of copper in her blood, but in her hair, she was able to see, based on those ratios and other mineral levels, that, hey, I probably can't even use the copper I have. And it's not necessarily that it's like too much, but her body's not using it and it's accumulating. And then it showed the why behind the symptoms. So there are PCOS typical protocols that I've seen, PCOS supplement lines out there, but every woman with PCOS is unique. Every woman is unique, and our mineral levels are going to vary. It doesn't matter if we have a certain symptom. This is why we want to test and not guess and see what our bodies actually need. And by her doing this, she was able to avoid taking a statin. The last pattern I'll dig into, hopefully you're enjoying this, is a calcium shell. So a calcium shell is when calcium levels are around 170 or higher on a hair test. So this person's are 190, very high. And it's typically accompanied by a really high calcium magnesium ratio, so like a high blood sugar ratio, high thyroid ratio, that calcium potassium ratio, and then a low sodium and potassium ratio. The calcium is usually just not being used properly. It's stuck in the tissues and it's not available for bones, muscles, or metabolism. And that's right. Calcium is important for a lot more than just our bones. We use it for a lot of other things. We literally use it to make energy. So this calcium is typically not bioavailable, which means the body can't use it. And it's building up due to poor adrenal function, maybe some emotional shutdown or a big traumatic event, or lots of little tiny traumatic events throughout our lives. I will often see it from like one big event that like created this calcium shell, because it's truly like a protective wall or armor around you, like biochemically and emotionally. It makes you feel very numb. A lot of times you're not really in touch with your feelings. And again, the reason why this forms after either a long life of trauma or in stressful events, or like one big event, is because it's like your body actually trying to protect you. It's wild. So This is a calcium shell. It just slows you down. Typically, there's a copper issue going on. This person's copper is only 1.2. It's not overtly high, but let me see, their manganese is low and their boron is low. So there's probably some hidden copper stuff going on, and the iron is suspiciously high. So it makes me think, okay, like even if I didn't know the case, I would think, okay, there's probably some copper imbalances going on regardless. And they can cause issues with liver, stagnation, poor bile flow, just slows the body down. It leads to a lot of fatigue, and it can lead to like just a lot of mental health stuff. So I address this. There's a lot of thoughts on calcium shells. I look at them as I want to support all the different cofactors of calcium. I've had many people come to me after working with practitioners where they're like, yeah, I added in more calcium and it made me feel better at first. And then I felt terrible because calcium is very calming. So it could make you feel better in the short term, but it's not going to break your calcium shell. And to be honest, with calcium shells, you want to work on your foundations. Get good sleep, get morning light, block blue light at night, eat nourishing foods, eat enough food, and have those basics in place so that your body and your nervous system has predictability and it has safety. And then it will feel safe enough to break the shell. Because remember, it's a protective shell too. So I like to focus on foundations and then also layer in support with cofactors like magnesium, vitamin K2, vitamin A, taurine, and then I will definitely use liver support and often a binder because typically there's some sort of metal issue in there as well. And then eventually I will often use iodine with these clients. I had a calcium shell when I first did my hair test. So it's near a pattern that's near and dear to my heart. But if someone tells you to take calcium with high calcium on your hair test, sometimes you do need it. Sometimes if you're not getting any in your diet, you may truly need to like utilize supplementation in the short term, but it's so much deeper than that. You have to look at the other factors. So this client, she worked on the foundations big time. I mean, she was like, not eating enough food, not eating until like 1 p.m. She was staying up late. She was like, it's so funny because she's like, I'm like a night owl. And she went from being a night owl to like waking up with the sun. So I'm like, were you a night owl? So we worked so much on her circadian rhythm, just eating breakfast within an hour of waking, and just tried to slowly work on like teaching her how to nourish herself. I have this like food and mood journal that I use to help people do that. And she stopped a lot of her other supplements. She was also on a very high dose of vitamin D, which can be a big contributor, and just worked on lifestyle habits because she was, in her words, she's like, I'm just a stress ball, a ball of stress. I feel it all the time, or I feel nothing at all. And she's like, I hate it. And when she saw her test results, it was like, wow, okay, this is like me to a T. So she worked on those things first, and then we layered in supplements because again, like we wanted to make sure she was ready to break that shell and feel all those feelings, right? And so we worked on magnesium, K2. I did cod liver oil for vitamin A, taurine, a little bit of boron, selenium, and some liver support. And eventually she implemented iodine because she like fertility was important to her in the future. So I like to utilize that. And she was like a new person. So extreme fatigue, hypothyroid symptoms, to waking up with the sun, having bowel movements every day, and just feeling like herself again, like a self that she didn't even know existed, which was really beautiful. So if you're like, these are really interesting patterns, I can like kind of line up with some of my symptoms and what I'm seeing here. Let's talk about how you can do this too. So this is why I made my Master Your Minerals course. It is truly my first baby. I created and launched this course 4 years ago, almost exactly to this day, at least when I'm recording this. And it has grown and gone through so many changes since its inception. Master Your Minerals not only teaches you exactly what to do based on your hair test results, but it has the foundational principles I'm always talking about: how to know if you're eating enough, working on stress reduction, how to support your circadian rhythm, how to support your blood sugar, and so much more has just been really expanded upon. So it's kind of like a course in a course. But because everyone comes in a different place. Some people are like, I got the basics down, I just want to jump straight to the testing. And some people are like, no, I definitely want to work on my foundations first. And then I recently redid it. It's Master Your Minerals 2.0. I made a whole new course because I'm crazy. And I added specific health tracks because over the years I made a lot of lessons for like, okay, what about like if I get pregnant, or what if I have PCOS or period pain or headaches and migraines? I did a whole course on the thyroid, and I'm like, how can I expand on these so that when people join, if they have a concern like this, they can dig into that one specific concern and do all the foundational stuff for that. So that's what I did. I made little mini courses on each topic, and I've got thyroid, period pain, PMS, PMDD, a PCOS track, pregnancy track, headaches and migraines, endometriosis. These are all present at the time of recording this. But as you've probably guessed, I make updates to the course a lot. And so I'm also going to be adding a menopause track, a men's health track, which has been heavily requested, a kids track, and I'm going to get help from one of my colleagues to do that, a skin track. One of my dietitians is a holistic esthetician. She's going to help me with that one. And then a gut histamine track. So we're still adding. I'm always trying to improve on the course because it's truly like we use it for our one-on-one clients. It's like, it's the thing I put most of my energy into. It's like my life's work. And it has been able to help over 4,000, almost 5,000 women at this point, which is absolutely amazing. And so these additions I think are amazing. You also could just go through the course and do your hair test and not worry about specifics and see results. Like that's kind of the nice part with minerals. No matter what, it's going to get addressed. A few things I want to just highlight is this is not like a one and done program. You get access to this for life, including all the future updates. All my old students got the new version of the course. The goal is that you can use hair testing as a tool when you need it. Like so many women use it for like, maybe they have period issues, PCOS, endometriosis, thyroid issues. And then later on, like a few years down the road, they're like, okay, I want to get pregnant. So then they use it to prep for pregnancy, during pregnancy, postpartum, menopause. I've had so many women like, I think I'm entering my perimenopause season of life. So they'll utilize hair testing for that. Or like people in their life that are going through that, because you can order tests for family members as well. But basically, it's not one and done. It's something that, my students use it forever. Like I've had people come in and be like, oh, I totally forgot that I had this in here. I'm like going through all like the meal plans again. Or I had a woman that did a hair test for one of her children, and she's like, yeah, she's got diagnosed with PCOS. And now she's going through the PCOS track with her. It's just meant to be like your tool that you can utilize and have as a resource versus going to Google or Instagram. The other thing is I do have ongoing support as well. I do a Q&A every month. I have a little course community where you can post your Q&A questions. I also cover a case study every month. So I pick a student. You can apply to be a case study if you want. And then I do roadmap reviews where if you want me to look at your tests and give you recommendations based on your results, I can do that too. But overall, it's incredibly supportive. I try to make this as accessible as possible. So let's take a quick look inside Master Your Minerals so you can see what it's all about. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you log in. This is the dashboard. You can see we've got our community here, so you can get to the Master Minerals community. I have mineral balancing meal plans here, how to order another hair test, and then on the left-hand side, this is all the course content. So I go through how to complete your hair test, a few videos here. It's really one video, and then if you live in New York, there's a video, and then I go through how to order a hair test for family members. And then I have a start here, which is like mindset, nutrition, things that you can do before you have your hair test results. And then if you want to dig into certain paths, like the specific health tracks, you can do that under the choose your path based on your main health concern. I have a general health one that anyone can do. And then I have like the specific thyroid, PCOS, pregnancy, all the different concerns. And then it goes to understanding your hair test results. So once you get your hair test results back, I go through the basics of minerals here. If you were only going to watch one lesson, it would be this one, using your HTMA roadmap. I made a roadmap. It's a PDF, and you can go through, you can fill it out. And basically it goes through every single marker on your hair test. And it goes through how, like, not only is it high or low, but it gives you examples of why, like all the reasons it could be why, all the reasons it could be low. The reason I do that is because I want you to understand how you got here. I don't want to just be like these random results and you're kind of like, I have high calcium, but I don't really understand why. You will understand why. So I go through all the minerals in that. And then these videos are very short. It's like 2 minutes for most of these. And I just go through each mineral. Again, you can find this information in the roadmap. So you don't have to watch all the video lessons. It's up to you. You could go through your hair test and have a plan in less than an hour. So that's why I wanted to make this mom friendly, limited time people friendly. And then I have a build your protocol section, and this goes, I have a protocol roadmap. So if you really just want to skip to the protocol roadmap, you could, and then you'd have a plan in probably 15 minutes. But ideally, you go through your test, you understand how you got here. Then you use the protocol roadmap and you build your supplement protocol. So in the HTMA roadmap, I talk about nutrition, lifestyle changes to make. Supplement protocol roadmap is all supplements. And it goes through the different patterns that may be present, how to pace your protocol. And I have example protocol walkthroughs that I made for different common imbalances that I see. I honestly I love the roadmaps. I think that they are awesome. So I'll show you an example of what it looks like. One second. I'll share this. So this is the protocol roadmap, and it goes through like order of operations when you're creating your protocol. Phase 1, you always focus on the macro minerals, right? And I go through what to do if certain levels are high or low, things you want to consider, and other markers on your hair test to look at. Same thing with the supporting minerals. That's phase 2. And then, because you always want to do macro minerals first, because those are going to have an impact on all your supporting minerals as well. So we've got those. And then I talk about copper, zinc, and iron because there's a lot of nuance there. I even go through like understanding your iron panel. I do cover iron blood work. And then I dig into how to support it. Phase 3 is always binder, detox, liver support. I go through how to support drainage pathways. I talk about what's safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding. It is all here. So the course is truly like, I'm very, very proud of this. I try to make it as everything like what would I need, when I was healing? What do I use for all my clients? I mean, I've been doing this work for a decade now. So it's everything that I use all the time with my clients, myself, my family, into a packaged up resource that you can utilize whenever you want. I also have healing journey support. So in this section, I get into like what to expect on your healing journey, how to optimize your water quality, other like nervous system resources. We have tapping videos from Teresa Paella. She's amazing, just so you can have some nervous system support as you're going through your protocol as well. I go through retesting, and then I have all the Q&A recordings. I do a student newsletter once a month. I didn't even mention that, but you can see there's a lot. It is an amazing program. You can only go through the roadmaps and you'd be fine. You don't have to watch a video lesson, but ultimately it is there when you need it. And so it's definitely not a one-time thing. So if you have made it this long, thank you. I hope that this training has helped you understand how important minerals are and how they could change the trajectory of your health and your healing. And if you want to invest in the program, there's going to be a link below. It is $347. I promise you it is worth every single penny. And again, like, you'll get all future updates. You will get anything that I add in the future. You get the community access, the monthly Q&A calls, the case studies, the emails, everything. So you can get as immersed in this program as you want. But either way, I would love to see you inside and support you.